Welcome into another episode of Red Zone Talk. I'm Owen Burke. He's Tim Hunt. And boy, we got some stuff to catch up on because we have been slacking, missing shows left and right. Holidays, sickness, car issues, you name it, it's happened.
A little bit of everything. So that's how it goes sometimes.
It is. That's life. But we're here. We're here to talk about some football,
Hey,
and we've got some stuff to dive into.
we do this for fun, so we can kind of do it whenever we want, whenever we please. If someone wants to pay us to do it, let us know. We'd be happy. Our asking price is $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Then that's 365 days a year, 7 shows a week, whatever you want. But we're really flexible on
We'll get it.
terms.
Yeah. The terms are pretty easy. If you're willing to meet that price, man, that's the all you can eat package.
And
That's
that's
what
and
that.
that's the package deal. That's for both of us. So if you
Yeah,
if you break it down, that's 750 a guy. That's not even 3 million for both of us. I think that's a pretty manageable price.
that's a pretty sweet deal if you ask me. So get in because that price is only going to go up, folks. We've been doing this for 3 years. You give us another year or two under our belt, it's probably going to be like 1.75.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like,
The way inflation's going, it's been crazy. All right, you ready
yeah,
to jump into some headlines?
yeah. Let's get it going.
Okay. Um, First one I got is, when do you think the Falcons make the move to Penix? Because the way Kirk Cousins has been playing recently, I don't think it's really that crazy of an overreaction that they need to make it sooner than later.
No, I don't. And truthfully, I think the thing that makes me want them to move to it is like how their schedule looks down the stretch here. The only thing that makes me not want to do it is that they're 6-6 and they're still leading their division. Like,
We thought this was the year the NFC South was like finally going to be good. Like we were like, oh, this is the year. There's going to be some really good teams in this division, and
yep.
boy, were we wrong. G O
Yes,
G.
the Saints scored 87 points the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't know if they scored 87 in the last 11 weeks
Yeah,
at this point. So you're at least thinking that team could be capable of some things. The Panthers have looked better as of late,
they have.
but
Yeah,
the Buccaneers just absolutely ravaged by injuries, and the Falcons doing what the Falcons do, which is just lose games they shouldn't lose, has led to us to both the Falcons and the Bucks being 6-6 at the top of that division. And technically, I guess the Saints really aren't that out of it at 4-8. Crazier things have happened. So
2 games back from a playoff spot still somehow.
yeah, like I think that they should turn to him next week. Obviously, they're not going to. We're recording this late. They're playing the Vikings. That's not a defense I'd put Michael Penix out there against. I do not want my rookie quarterback being like, "Hey, here's your first test." It's a Brian Flores defense. Have fun. But after that, Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers. Like, that's a pretty soft 4 games. Like, you might be a little too high on Penix coming out of those 4 games because even the Commanders, being the only real good team amongst those 4, have one of the worst pass defenses in the league. So, if not the worst. So, I mean, if you want to like build some confidence going into next year, like, I don't think it's a terrible idea to turn to Penix for the last 4, if not maybe the last 2. Just give them the Commanders game to like see how Kirk goes with these next 3. But they've lost 3 straight at this point. So
And this is adding to the confusion of the Kirk Cousins deal, right? He has a no trade clause, and uh, he has this huge contract that it's going to be a pain to deal with, and he frankly just hasn't been good this year. Kirk Cousins is never known for being a great quarterback, but he was always like okay or good. Um,
with the right pieces and a good defense, you're like, this guy could win 12 games.
yeah,
But like,
that's it.
you lose one of those little pieces here along the way, all of a sudden you're at 9, and then you go to 7, and then
Yeah,
it just keeps coming down.
and that's really the problem is 17 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Like that's wild to me.
Yeah, the interceptions is very unkirk like.
Yeah, that's the part. I'm looking now. He threw 14 in Minnesota 2 years ago, but he threw 29 touchdowns that season. So,
Yeah.
like, it's one thing when, like in 2020, Kirk Cousins, he threw 35 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. You can manage, when you're talking that level of variation. When you're talking 17 touchdowns versus 13 interceptions, you're almost Jameis Winston territory. Like you're
Yeah.
really broaching on that quickly, and Kirk doesn't have that upside throwing. I think I think you have to make the move and then hope somebody wants Kirk Cousins in the offseason. I don't know who would for that kind of money. I'm not really sure what you do.
Yeah, I don't know what you do there. I think the contract is a little weird. I'm glad that they at least front loaded it to where they could move off of him after 2. I kind of really wish that they would have just done that for 3 years and they could move off him after 1. But that would give them a lot more flexibility in the situation. But I agree. Like, I mean, you brought Kirk in because you felt like this team was ready to win now. And if Kirk's not getting the job done, you spent a first. It's not like this is like Sam Ellinger you took in the 4th round and you're like, oh, we got to see what's behind Kirk. No, like you spent a top 10 pick on a quarterback this year.
Yeah,
Like, it is very, very, very well possible that you should turn to him amongst the 3-game skid when you're still in the hunt for the playoffs. And who knows, like we've seen crazy things. Like the Super Bowl is pretty wide open. There's definitely your 4 or 5 contenders that we know can probably win it, but there's not as clear cut of an answer as there always is. And as far as the NFC goes, as far as getting there, you really got 2 teams to go through. Like
yeah,
there's not a very long list at the top of the NFC where like, all right, if we beat one of 2 or both of these teams, we can make the Super Bowl. Whereas the AFC, you kind of got a gauntlet because even if you're low on the Ravens, you don't think they're a Super Bowl team. That's not a team you want to see in the playoffs,
for
right?
sure. Yeah, definitely.
On the other side, like once you pass those 2 Super Bowl contenders, you're like, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to play the Vikings or the Packers, but like I feel like I can get this job done. Penix comes in and puts 4 good weeks of tape, and he gets hot in those 4 games. He just has to stay hot for another 4, and all of a sudden they're raising a Lombardi trophy in Atlanta. Obviously, a very far fetched situation, but Colin Kaepernick came in, took the league by storm. Obviously, he played almost a full season, and we saw him fall off a cliff afterwards. All it takes is 8 games of no one having tape on you. They can go win a Super Bowl right now. It's possible. I'm not saying it's probable. It's not a prediction. It could happen. I was very high on Penix coming into the draft. I like him as a quarterback a lot. And as long as he's been doing his due diligence while he's been sitting on the sidelines and paying attention and learning, who knows?
Here's an interesting thought for you with Kirk Cousins. If the 49ers decide, hey, we want to run it back one more time, instead of paying Brock Purdy, do you just, Kyle Shanahan's always been a Kirk Cousins guy.
True.
You know what I mean? And you wouldn't, the price would have to be extremely low, right? Like I'm thinking like a 5th rounder or something, like somewhere, maybe a 4th, you know what I mean? I can't imagine it's going to be the Aaron Rodgers deal where it's like, a 3rd that becomes a 2nd or anything close to that.
If it goes higher, it's because Atlanta's going to eat more of the money off the top of that deal instead of sticking San Fran to keep
Right.
it.
Yeah, it could be something along those lines, but that would really be the only team that I would even think that, we're in a win now mood. We want to take on a, 40 million, $45 million a year quarterback.
Yeah, it's either going to be them or the team that just misses on one in the draft, or for some reason, Mark Davis thinks that Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew is the quarterback of the future, despite possibly having a chance to get the best guy in the draft this year.
I
Like, if that team really doesn't go QB, like we get to week 4 next year and their quarterback situation still sucks,
here
Kirk's the backup, maybe, but
here are the teams that are, I would say, that are quarterback needy going into next year. I'd say not Jacksonville, excuse me. Las Vegas, you have the New York Giants. I'd maybe put the Jets on that list. Maybe they push it off for a year. Maybe they don't. Uh, Tennessee. I don't think you're sitting there and you're like super thrilled about James or Will Levis. Thank you. Jeez, forgot his name. And then maybe you put the Browns and the Saints on that list. I don't really know. The Browns aren't in a place where they can do anything about quarterback yet. They wouldn't be in the Kirk Cousins market. And then same thing for the Saints. If Derek Carr's not your answer, I don't think Kirk Cousins really moves the needle.
yeah,
But,
I agree.
but outside of that, I really don't think there's a ton of quarterback needy teams, and there's probably going to be 3 guys taken in the top 10, maybe 2, and then a 3rd guy in a later round, something along those lines. I'm very curious to see how it shakes out. I think Vegas and New York are definitely getting QBs because it might be a question of who trades up to 1. Because right now the Jags have the first overall pick, which is just insane.
Ah, good lord.
That'll be
Yeah.
their third first overall pick over in the last 5 years.
Which is insane when you think of like that team is should be competing for the playoffs
Right.
year in, year out the
Oh,
last 3
they won a
years.
playoff game. Was it last year? No, it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Oh no, they lost that play. They didn't win a playoff game. They lost to the Chargers.
Yeah, they lost. Yeah, you're right. I
They
always forget.
choked it. Yeah, that was the one they choked at the end. But yeah, it was a playoff team 2 years ago. Like that's how competitive that team is, and it's just completely fallen apart.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some teams in the market this offseason. I don't know if anybody's going to be in the Kirk Cousins market is the issue.
Right.
Like
It's a very
getting
niche market for Kirk Cousins. You want to be a win now team.
Yeah. As far as quarterbacks go, I think the league is ready for expansion because we get to this every offseason. There's 3 or 4 talented vets, and they're not always 40. Sometimes they're 31, 32, like a Tyrod Taylor or Geno Smith. And you're like, there's just no spot. Like, there's 20 guys that are well settled, whether they're either really good or they just got drafted really high or they just got a big payday. And then there's always young quarterbacks that are entering this league. Like, the Kenny Pickett draft class don't come around that often.
Right.
Like,
They're few and far between.
yeah, we usually have 2 to 3 coming in the first round, and lately we've been very like I don't very blessed, but like we've had some 4 and 5s in the past couple of years, to where it's like
Yeah.
when there's 2 quarterback classes in 3 years that have 5 get drafted in the first round, like that's a third of the league that has spent a high pick and will probably have that quarterback on roster if not starting for 4 of the 5 years,
Even if we
and then you have
if we look at the 4 and 5 year QB classes, right? So you had Baker Mayfield. That team's pretty happy. Um,
yep,
Josh Allen. That team's pretty happy with their QB.
damn happy.
Well, I
Yeah.
shouldn't say Cleveland's not very happy, but Tampa Bay is very happy that Cleveland let Baker go.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
Baker's been pretty good. Um, Josh Rosen, he was a bust. Sam Darnold, right? He looks like he's kind of revived his career in Minnesota. Um,
Yeah, the Vikings are happy.
yeah, who was the fifth quarterback taken in that class?
Lamar.
Oh, Lamar. That team's pretty happy, right?
Yeah, pretty happy, I'd say.
And then if we go to the next four year QB class, right? Joe Burrow, Cincinnati is in love with him still.
Yep.
You have Tua. They're pretty thrilled with Tua.
Yeah,
Justin
I'd say
Herbert.
so.
Their Chargers are pretty happy with him. Who's the fourth? Was there a fourth? Oh, maybe that was only a 3 in that year. Am I missing somebody? I feel like there were
Uh,
4 in that class. Unless I'm,
I don't remember
unless I'm
2020
blanking.
drafts. Scroll. Well, Hertz was a second round pick. I don't know
Oh,
if you
Hurts
remember.
is the second. Okay. Eagles are pretty happy with Hurts right now, right? They're a high playoff seed.
Oh, there was one in the first round. Jordan Love. Pretty happy with
Oh,
that guy.
Jordan Love. They're pretty happy with that guy. Okay. And then we go to maybe the next exception class, right? First QB off the board, and that one was Trevor Lawrence. Maybe not super thrilled. Second QB, Zach Wilson, as a backup in Denver. Not super
Yeah.
thrilled. Trey Lance is a backup in Dallas. Not super thrilled. Who's the fourth? Justin Fields.
Dwayne Haskins. Oh yeah, it was.
It was
Yeah, that
just
was Jeff Fields.
yep, Justin Fields, backup in Pittsburgh, and then McCorkle Jones would have been the fifth quarterback of that class, backup in Jacksonville. None of those guys are, besides Trevor Lawrence, who's hurt. None of those guys are starting QBs in the NFL. So that would
Yeah,
maybe be the exception to the rule. Even last year's class, right? I don't think any of the teams who took a guy are unhappy at this point.
no.
Yeah,
Like I think it's impossible to be because what was it? 3?
it was
Was it 4?
four.
It was 4.
It was 4 because it was Caleb
McCarthy got.
Williams. Oh no, it was 5 because it was Caleb Williams,
Yep. Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels. It was Drake May, Bo Nix,
Yeah.
and then JJ McCarthy. So I mean,
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy's just hurt, and he was going to sit here. Oh, Michael Penix in that class too. There's 6 QBs. God, there were 6 QBs taken last year.
Is that right?
That's crazy.
It's
Yeah, that's
insanity.
right. It's got to be right. All of those guys were first.
Yeah, could we also talk about how crazy? Well, I mean, I don't know how much it would affect their bottom line in the long run, but we all remember the very highly debated Trayvon Walker versus Aiden Hutchinson debate
Yikes.
and how that's worked out at this point. Defensive Player of the Year candidate before he snapped his leg versus.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've heard a story about Trayvon Walker since he got to Jacksonville.
He's gotten better. I mean, that class was weird because Thibodeau was in that one too. And Thibodeau
Yeah.
is one of those guys where it's like he'll have a game and you're like, oh, that dude's a beast. And then you have in like the rest of the season, you're like, did we draft a guy super high? I
Holy shit.
what?
Yeah, 2024 draft. 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. Guess where the next one was taken?
I don't think
After the
I think it was Spencer Rattler in like the fourth, right?
fifth.
In the
In the
fifth,
fifth.
yeah. I knew it was Spencer Rattler because it was like, yeah, because it was a fall off. Because then it was what Sam, what's the Sam Hartling or what are the Notre Dame guy? Because he got
Yeah.
Washington as well.
Holy hell. That's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had 6 go in the first round, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more go the rest of the draft.
yeah, that's crazy. I don't think next year. I mean, next year I think will be a 2 or 3 year guy class. I don't think it'll be crazy because you have Shador, you have Cam Ward, who would definitely be a top 5 pick between the two of them, and then after that kind of gets weird. Jalen Milroe, where
Yeah.
like. Here's the thing, though. I always say this about this point is it'll look like 2 or 3, and then 2 guys will work their way into the first. Like Jalen Milroe will perform great at the combine, and people will be like, Nick Saban loves him. He's a football guy, and he'll be drafted super super high as well.
Yeah, I'm not super high on Milroe personally.
I don't like Carson Beck that much either. Like there's
No, Carson Beck is fucking. He's probably the guy I'm the lowest on. Like, I really do think that Garrett Nussmeier at LSU will work his way into the first round because
you think so?
a lot of
I
people,
could see him being the first guy in the second or something. I don't know, maybe.
love him. And then Drew Aller again might be another guy that works his way into the first round. Like, if there's 5 QBs to go, I think it's Ward, Sanders, Milroe, Nussmeier, and Aller. Like, those would be the 5 that I could see going in the first.
Yeah.
Milroe, I'm not sure. I have such a tainted vision of mobile quarterbacks and their development now because I've been so absolutely ridiculously spoiled. Where I watch a mobile quarterback one year and then I watch him the next year, and if I don't see a certain bit of improvement here or there, I'm like, this guy doesn't have it. Just because, like, dude, the first year and a half with Lamar, like, people don't remember like the overthrows. I mean, people may remember, but like, I was like, I don't know. He's such a fucking freak of nature, but there's just some of these throws where I'm like, man, you cannot miss that as an NFL quarterback. And now we're sitting here because the highest passer rating in the league as far as averages go. Like, I want to say his worst passer rating in a win this year is 114.7.
You know what makes me mad about this draft process? It really upsets me. Is the leading in college football, the leading passer isn't going to be like in the top 3 rounds, which is insane to me. It's insane.
Yeah. Who is leading the nation?
Oh, that's a great question. Kyle McCord is at Syracuse University.
Oh, dude. Watching Will Howard go to Ohio State and then just like kind of be meh, and then Kyle McCord fucking tearing it up in fucking Syracuse.
Yeah.
I'm like,
9-3. I mean, we're finished in the top 25. It was a great year. Like
hell yeah.
I want to say, Bryce, thank you for giving us Kyle McCord. I know you're probably, we still made the playoffs. It's like, yeah, not because of Will Howard, despite of Will Howard.
Oh yeah, he was probably happy to see McCord go, but yeah,
I'll
of
never.
course, the one year you guys popped off and you could hold some over Dustin, Cam Ward, and the boys had to come through and fucking, they had to fucking show out all year too.
Oh, we beat him. We beat him head to head.
I was like, I figured you did beat him.
We beat him. That's why they weren't in the AC. The best part about it was not only did they have a great year, they had a phenomenal year. We kept them out of the ACC championship game. Syracuse put Clemson in it, and then Clemson's probably might make the playoffs because of that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was like Miami wins that game and then wins the conference championship. If they lose a close conference championship game, they might still squeak in if they beat you guys.
Yeah, it actually just got announced.
That's fucking sick.
Do you want to do a live reaction?
Yeah, let's do it. Fuck it. We got time today.
Wait, I thought it was announced. Oh, maybe it's Bleacher Report. Are you leading me on again? You silly goobers.
They always do.
Oh, it's being announced. Okay, so we don't have it yet. Damn. I don't think Miami gets in. I'd be shocked, but
Yeah, I hope SMU makes it.
really,
I yeah, I had a buddy at work that was an SMU fan, so I've been like, I'm like, oh, I'll get down with SMU, like, and I mean, I don't they what they're 11-2, and their second loss was a game-winning field goal to Clemson in the conference championship game.
yeah,
Like,
it is a bummer. I don't know. I don't. This is gonna sound bad. I mean, Boise State might be the exception of this rule because they legit look good. But if Boise State gets their break speed off of them in the second round by a team, I'm gonna be pretty pissed. Like,
see, it's this age-old thing. We've dealt with this for years. This will be the last college football thing we do before we get back to it. But like, I hated how the committee handled the Florida State shit. I understand it. I do. Because again, you want the best product out there. We all know at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10 on a Saturday, a 4-loss Alabama team can beat the best group of 5 school you want to put up. It doesn't matter if it's Boise, it doesn't matter
yeah.
who it is. They like a 4-loss Alabama team will probably beat most of those group of 5 schools in a heartbeat. But like, it just sucks to be like, oh, your games don't fucking matter. Your quarterback got hurt, so you can't make it.
Well,
Like,
so the point of the 12 is it's fine. I just don't like them as a 4. If they're the 4 seed, that's so crazy to me.
I do somewhat agree with that, but I mean that's on the fucking Big 12 for fucking just letting KU run rabbit at the end of the year the way they
Yeah,
did.
pretty much.
K State decided they didn't want to fucking play football the
Football.
last 4 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
Like,
There
and
was a
that's what
Colorado choked their chance. They had to just win. They had to beat KU, and they couldn't do that. Like
dude, yeah.
there was
I'll tell you, KU plays 10 games like they did their last 4.
yeah.
They're fucking in the playoffs. Good. I watched that Colorado game. It's one of the few college football games I watched all the way through that wasn't a K State game.
Mhm.
Good fucking Lord. Like, because I remember watching the first 10 games or, 7 to 8 games of the KU season and being like, yep, regular old KU. Anybody who said this team's going to be better than K State is fucking off their rocker. And then I watched that Colorado game and I'm like, I see where you guys are at. This is fucking insane. These guys are.
That team was more talented than K State this year. Like
I,
I think it was more talented. I just don't think they could ever put it together. Like
yeah,
they should have beat K State in the KU game. Like there were several
yeah,
times where I was like, they're outplaying us right now.
and that's where K State season fell apart to me was like because KU showed everybody that like these guys are not as good as because you look at the record and every like how they beat and everybody and you're like this team's really fucking good and then KU went out there and you're like okay K State might be fraudulent actually
K State was I felt too predictable. I think losing Colin Klein hurt us this year. I think that showed in the play calling, and then our defense was like, oh, it's 4th and 3. They're gonna blitz 6 people. They're sending 7. Like it just was.
yeah.
Like if it was third and fourth down, I was like, okay, it's 3rd and 3 and a big play. I was like, we're gonna blitz. Like I just knew we were gonna blitz. It was like our go-to move, and it was like after a while,
Fourth and 3 better go deep 4 quarters don't want them taking a shot down the field here
yeah.
you're like
What are we
fuck
doing?
are we doing
Why are we doing it like this? But I mean, that's enough college football talk.
yeah
We don't really
the
talk about
playoff
college football ever, which is weird.
no, it's draft season that's when we talk about it because it's pertinent to our stuff at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah, it honestly like the first Saturday with no college football, it kind of stunk. I okay. One more thing about college football, and then we'll move on. The people who say that the playoffs ruined the regular season of college football are just wrong. Like more games mattered these last 2 to 3 weeks of who's going to make conference championships and who has a chance of making the playoffs. Like this is the most interested I've ever been in college football this deep into a season without a team competing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like since 2014 K-State or
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? Like this has been really good for college football. Like a lot of fans, if your team had 7 wins in the last 3 weeks going into it, they had a chance of making the college football playoffs, which is just cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was not the case before. You know what I mean? If you had lost 2 games, you're like, well, there's the season. Doesn't matter. We're playing for fun, you know? So that's my take on that. I don't really care.
Yeah, I'm on both sides of the coin because I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like it needed to be more than 4. I like 12 like
Hmm.
cuz again it we never have those situations where it's like, "Oh, well, Florida State did literally everything right, but their starting quarterback snapped his leg in half, so they're going to be the 5th seed and not play in the
Yeah.
playoff." I like the 12 teams. I'm all for it. But it's things that like today again, SMU's 2 losses are to BYU when they were a top 10 team in the nation by 3, and then a game-winning field goal against Clemson in the ACC title game.
Yeah,
And
50
then
yarder
again,
nonetheless.
like I said, yeah, again, like a crazy college football game-winning kick, a 50-yarder. And again, if Alabama and SMU played 10 times, Alabama probably wins that matchup 7 or 8 times out of 10. I would probably go on a limb and say that. But when that fucking SMU team with their resume and their 2 losses being really good losses in close games versus a 4-loss Alabama team who's had 2 really bad losses to like 6-6 teams, and you're
Yeah.
like, which team's going to make the 14? Like that's where I'm like,
I would rather
the playoff
Miami. Miami should be more in the discussion than Bama. Like,
yeah.
I think Bama just is getting brand weight at this point.
I no, that's all it is. Like to me, 4 losses you can't make it. Like
Yeah.
unless it's like a number 2 Georgia team by 3, Oregon by 5, and it's like, and they've got to be early. You got to get 2 or 3 of them out of the way early because you can't fucking lose 4 of your last 6 and be like, oh, but they were all good losses. We should still make it. No, you've lost 4 games last 6 weeks. You're not fucking making it.
This is also part of my problem, like with college football too. Is like, well, they lost the last 2 out of their 3. It's like we don't ever talk about that in the NFL. Like what, like teams
No.
either make the playoffs or they don't, right?
Yep.
Based on an overall picture. Like in college football, it feels like it gets really nitty gritty of like, well, they lost 3 out of their last 4. It's like, well, motherfucker, they were like they played the best teams in the last 4 weeks. Like, what do you want? Like, they're still a good team. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
That kind of always bothered me. It's like you throw a conference championship in there, and it's like, well, they lost 2 in a row. It's like, okay, so they lost their last game, and then they lost to the best team in their conference, and we're gonna punish them for that. Like, that always has bothered me a little bit. Like,
I agree. And the conference championship loss, like it's got to be bad. If I'm going to be like, oh, they lost their conference championship game,
yeah.
like they better have lost by 20 to 30. Like,
And this is the argument. This is the Penn State argument, where it's like they never beat anybody who matters, right? Like
nope.
it blows my mind how like they're like, oh, they're gonna be a top, they're in the top 12. It's like anytime they play anybody, it's like people are dogging on Indiana and be like, they didn't beat anyone big. It's like neither did Penn State. Like,
The difference is Indiana started ranked like 60th in the country.
yeah,
Penn State started at 9.
9, right?
So, like, dude, those preseason people are like, oh, the preseason rankings don't matter. I'm like, they do because if you don't have shit on your schedule, but you start in the top 10, guess where you're going to end? Probably in the fucking top 10 or in the top 14 for sure. But if you end at fucking 60, if you start at 60 and you don't play anybody, you might peak at 22.
Yeah, they beat.
And it's just because of where you started. Even though neither team played anybody, they started at 9, they started 60, and it's just they ended at 8. They went up 1 spot. These guys traversed 40 spots, but Penn State's the one that's going to make the playoffs in the long run.
They
Like,
they beat Illinois, so excuse me. They beat Illinois, who was ranked 19th in the country. Sorry, they have a big win. I shouldn't be dogging them too much, but I don't know. It drives me
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, no, that's why I can't get into college football as much because there's some of those talking points where I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? And like, do we have to? I was like, one more thing about college
One
football.
more thing about college football. I mean, it's fine. It's talking
Last thing, the for people that are always like, oh, college football is so much better than the NFL. I can't watch the NFL. College football just means more. When it comes to like the bigger week to week matchups, I can understand where you're at. We were like number 2 Ohio State versus number 4 Oregon in the shoe, fucking 7:30 on a Saturday night. I'm like, yeah, that game is a lot fucking cooler than the NFL on that given weekend. I'll give it to you. But Alabama versus Old Dominion Christian Southern of Tennessee Southwest in week 2
right.
is not better than like there's ebbs and flows. Don't say you're like, oh, the overall product is so much better. Because if I pick 10 random games and I pick only 2 of them can be like ranked versus ranked. The other 10, the other 8 have to be either ranked, unranked, or unranked, unranked. I'm gonna be watching a fucking snooze fest 5 out of 10 times.
Okay.
It's because the upsets are so much better because they come from fucking nowhere. Because you increase your team pool from 32 to 156 or whatever it is.
All right. I have something that I think will prove your point here. Okay. Let's pick who's the worst team in the SEC this year. Where's the SEC?
Huh, I miss being able to just say Vanderbilt and be right. That's not right
Hey,
anymore.
Vanderbilt. Yeah, okay. They went 3-5 in conference. Okay, Mississippi State Bulldogs. Okay, they won
Uh,
2 games this year. Okay,
yep.
uh, and they beat Eastern Kentucky and UMass. Any game that the Carolina well, I don't care who you pick as the worst team. Carolina Panthers, the Jaguars. Any game that they play against any NFL team is immediately more interesting than whoever Mississippi State's going to play.
Yeah.
Immediately, like the game is like Carolina's won 3 games this year, right? I think that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. 3-9. You're right.
They're 3-9. Any like the 9 losses they have are way more entertaining than any of the Mississippi State losses, right? Like it's just a completely like the level of competition. The difference between being a 3-win team and a Super Bowl team is like this. You know what I mean? We're talking like Carolina could flip it around in 2 off seasons and be a Super Bowl team like that. In college football, the gap between a Mississippi State and a Tennessee, an Alabama, Oregon, whoever you want to put at that top tier, is
Yep.
massive. Like it is. Like there are people who are probably starting on Mississippi State who wouldn't make the roster at Alabama, which is crazy to say. You know what I mean? And that is
Yeah. And
not the case. Like
they're in the same conference.
Carolina has
Like,
people who, yeah, exactly. They're in the same conference. Carolina has people who would start for the Chiefs, who would start for the Bills, who would start. You know what I mean? Like there's always some level of talent that are like they're starters around the NFL. Like just you know what I mean?
one guy can drastically change an NFL team by like 3 or 4 wins. It does not happen in college football.
Yeah.
Like,
Outside of the
unless you're
quarterback,
dropping, yeah, like unless you're dropping fucking Ashton Genty on Kennesaw State, like, yeah, he's probably gonna make a big fucking. You have to go to the bottom of that barrel and take like the worst team and add that good of a player. But even then, he's just a fucking outlier against 8-man boxes and horrible offensive line play that he's allowed to do that. Somehow we talked like 20 minutes about college football and didn't talk about the Heisman, which really pisses me off because I'd love to talk about it, but I feel like we need to move on.
no, we can talk about the Heisman. This is you know what the best part is? This is our show. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
College football episode, boys. Matt is eating this shit up in California right now. I know he
What
is.
do you want to talk about the Heisman? Are you upset that like is it are you an Ashton Genty guy or are you a Travis Hunter guy?
So, truthfully,
I think it's
I'm more of a
Hunter, but
I'm more of a Travis Hunter guy. I am. But the thing that pisses me off the most, and there's people on both sides that agree with us and disagree with us. The thing that frustrates me the most about all this is that there's people on either side saying that it shouldn't be a conversation. That's to
what?
me, that's fucking wrong. Yeah, people are like, it's so easily Ashton Genty, fucking Travis Hunter wasn't even the best offensive player on his own team. They're like this, that, and the other. He's only up there because he plays a lot of snaps. And then the other side of it is like people on our side are like, he's not even having the best running back season of all time. Melvin Gordon ran for 2,600 and he didn't win a Heisman. Like, this is the best Heisman debate we've had in
Long
years.
time. Like
This is
either one of them could win it and I wouldn't be like shocked.
no, I'm not. I won't be mad either way because as an analytics guy, watching Travis Hunter be top 10 at 2 different positions is fucking asinine. Like,
Right, yeah.
the cardio that it takes for him to for what all the Ginty guys rest their head on is like, oh, he only plays high snaps. It's the only reason he's up there. This has never been done. People are like, oh, Charles Woodson, but deep reference. Miles Jack, remember he was playing running back once upon a time. Like,
Was he really the
people are like,
linebacker?
yeah, Miles Jack was a running back for like he wasn't crazy. He was like 700 rushing
For
yards, but
who?
like, where did he go to school at? UCLA.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I knew he
Yeah,
was
there were talks of him being like a second or third round running back. Like
that's nuts. I,
real conversation.
he was a Madden must because he was fast. He had high Madden, but
Yeah. That's why he's playing running back. But what Travis Hunter's doing, no one has done before. Like Charles Woodson returned punts and played like 6 snaps at wide receiver
Yeah,
the year that everybody remembers. Again, prime time. Didn't play a ton of offensive snaps. Dynamite returner, best corner in the nation. Is Travis Hunter the best wide receiver in the country?
no.
No. Is he the best corner? No. Is he top 10?
In
Yes,
both?
in both
Yeah, I'd
spots.
say both. Yeah, for
We
sure.
have never had a guy like even Isaiah Simmons. It's different because you're like, oh, if he's a linebacker, he's probably like pick 20. If he's a safety, he's maybe like pick 15. If he's an edge rusher, he's like pick 9. And you're like, this guy could go first round in 3 different spots. They're all defense. Travis Hunter could be a first round pick at wide receiver. He could be a first round pick at corner. That has never happened before. That that is why I'm
That's
on this
true.
side of the coin. But as a true enjoyer of football, if I take away the laptop, I stop checking stats, and I just sit down and watch a football game, I watch Ashton Genty in a goal line stance against a fucking 9-man box. He breaks 4 tackles, gets out for 50 yards, breaks another 2, and goes another 20 yards for a touchdown. I'm like, and then he does that 4 times in a game. I'm like, fuck yeah, Ashton Genty's the fucking Heisman. So like I'm all for either side of this. Like, I think both have a real argument. I'm not going to be mad either way. The thing that pisses me off when people are like, I don't even know why Hunter's in the conversation, or I don't even know why Jinty's in the conversation. Like, something that's never been done before in a top 5 running back season in college football history. Both have legitimate arguments, and we should enjoy the argument while we have it. Because again, the last 4 to 5 years, it's been like, oh, which quarterback is it? It's going to be the best quarterback award. Bryce Young's winning the Heisman, whatever this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
Oh, it's another Oklahoma quarterback. Guys, we have 2 leading candidates. It's not going to be a quarterback. We know that for a fact. If anybody but these 2 guys don't win it, that's when we riot. The whole nation goes up in a roar if like Shadur Sanders or Cam Ward slips this award somehow at the end. Like
That'd be insane. I don't. I'm looking
there's this.
who's invited. Dylan Gabriel's invited. Oh, that's it. They only invited three this year. Do they only invite three? Is that normal?
It's usually the Heisman finalists. There's 3, but I feel like there's usually 5 total.
Oh, okay, right. That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
huh?
So Dylan Gabriel's the third.
He's
I mean, that makes sense.
yeah, quarterback on the best team.
Like, guys, yeah, Dylan Gabriel's your usual Heisman candidate. He's the best quarterback on the best team. He's played college football for fucking 6 years at this point. It's unfair.
If he won, I think it'd be like I would be like, okay, that's not acceptable. Like it has to be
No,
one of those two guys. I think personally.
I am at the point where I not even politely like if it's not one of those 2 guys, we riot. Like
I'm shocked
that's
Cam Ward's not up there. I figured he'd be a
like
finalist too, but
if they would have closed out and
yeah.
like beaten Syracuse, made the S, I bet he would
Don't
have
come
been
to the
up there.
JMM Dome thinking you're gonna have an easy game, okay? Fran Brown, Cal. I'm just sad if we're losing Kyle McCord this year. Kyle
Yeah.
McCord, like, why does our quarterback not get to play college football for 7 years, huh? What's up with that nonsense? Messed up.
Fucking Cam Rising's appealing for another fucking injury year, and you're like, dude, hang it
Is
up.
he really?
I think he's a. I don't know if he's officially applied for it, but I remember when he went down in like week 4, and they're like, technically, Cam Rising could apply for a medical red shirt. Next year would be his 9th season of college
That's
football.
crazy.
I want to say Cam Rising got. I don't remember if he's played at Utah his whole
He,
college career,
he
but I
got
want to
first
say
round hype like coming into this year. Like people thought he was gonna be a first round QB.
where. Oh, it says he's on. That's not right. 2020. Cam Rising's been playing for longer than that. Don't you lie to me.
Well, it might not count.
Oh yeah, he started at Texas in 2018. He's been at Utah 2019 to present.
6 years.
So that guy got to college. Like I have a coworker who's a year younger, and he started college a year later than me. And he's like, Cam Rising got to Texas the same year I got to Baylor. I have graduated for 2 years now and have a career, and he is still
And
playing
college
college.
football. That's just crazy. It's ridiculous.
That's insane.
All right, we're gonna. This is actually nice because this jumps in very nicely to our next conversation of the MVP race. Um, I think there's a real chance Saquon Barkley can win this MVP race. We were talking about. I know we talked about it last year. Like, oh, if somebody breaks that 2K barrier, there's a good chance that we see a non-quarterback win it. I think this year, I think there's a strong argument that it could be Saquon over anyone. Um, and he might not even have to break. I mean, he'd have to keep playing at the level that he's playing at. Like, don't get me wrong, but when we're talking about who are the top candidates for it, you'd say Saquon, you'd say Lamar, and you'd say Josh Allen. Josh
Yeah.
Allen isn't even inside the top 10 for passing yards this year among QBs. He's
Yeah, but all Bills fans will be quick to tell you that Lamar wasn't last year either, and he won,
yeah.
so it shouldn't matter because he's the best quarterback on the best team.
That's I mean there is some argument to that, but what if the Bills are the second seed again and the Kansas City Chiefs are the first seed? What then? Like, can we give it to Josh Allen anyways?
I see, and this is where I think they need to do these awards before the playoffs get played because I would say yes, it probably should be Josh at that point.
Hmm.
But then we'd watch Patrick Mahomes go to Buffalo after playing in the wild card or whatever the case, whether
And
it's the AFC title game or the division round. He'll go beat him somewhat convincingly, and they'll be like, well, Josh can't be the MVP anymore because he just played bad against the best defense in the league in the coldest game of the year the week before the fucking Super Bowl. Like, I hate how the NFL and the NBA do awards. Like, it's a regular season award, but we're not going to hand it out until we watch these guys play in the playoffs. Like,
it is kind of
recency
annoying.
bias, recency bias 110% affects what you think, like, going into,
Even if you don't
like,
want to give out the award prior to the playoffs, they should have to vote prior to the playoffs.
yeah, 100%, 110%.
Uh,
And, like,
Oh god.
I think Saquon is going to have a damn good argument. It frustrates the ever loving hell out of me that people are like, oh, if a running back breaks 2K, they got to be in the argument. And Derrick Henry was on pace for it for fucking the first 8 weeks of the season, and we've just fallen apart as far as our run game goes. Um, but as long as a quarterback doesn't run away with it, the best running back season, I think, will always have a decent shot at it. Like last year was by far and away the best. If he got to the Philly last year and is having the year he's having this year last year, he possibly would have won unanimous MVP last year. Like last year's MVP class was not great. I'm a Ravens guy, I'm a Lamar guy. Like no one to me, especially at the quarterback spot, like ran away or quote unquote deserved MVP over anybody else last year. But again, I don't know how many times I have to explain this to people. If you want to know why Lamar Jackson won MVP last year, is because the last 6 games he played in, they won. They beat Cincinnati, they beat LA, which were both 8-3 and 9-3 respectively at the time. Had their bye week. Crazy OT win over the 10-3 Rams, where he threw for 316 passing yards. 23-7 win over Jacksonville. Into San Francisco on Christmas Day, beat the shit out of San Francisco. He threw for 252. And then he hung 56 on Miami in his last start of the year and threw for 321. So for everyone who's still lost on why Lamar Jackson won the MVP last year, 6 straight wins. He threw for 300 plus yards in 3 of those 6 games, and they scored 56 in the last one.
Yeah.
Like, again, recency bias is one of the heaviest determiners for what MVP is going to be. And if you could put together, that's why I don't think people like, oh, Lamar Jackson's out of the race. They're 8-5, like he's cooked. They come back to after the bye week and they win all but one game, and he plays out of his mind. And Josh Allen doesn't like the only thing that holds Lamar out at this point would be somebody else cementing their resume as the guaranteed guy.
Yeah.
Because right now it's still open. Like Saquon gets to 2,200 rushing yards, breaks the all time record. He's like, I feel like it's got to go to him at that point. But again, down the stretch here, pull up
They have some tough games. I'm pretty sure there's a decent chance that it comes unglued, but I mean he could also run for 500 yards today against Carolina, and then
yeah.
just it'd be over. That'd be great. I would wish for something like that.
Baltimore plays New York, Pittsburgh, Houston, and Cleveland down the stretch.
Okay.
If they can win and he can play, now I don't have high hopes for this because he has a decent record against the Steelers in his career, but he has not particularly played well. The numbers do not look good against Pittsburgh. If they can convincingly beat Pittsburgh and convincingly beat Houston and Cleveland. Obviously, they should do that to New York out the gate. I'm so ready for that New York game. This team looks so motivated. Like this, it looks like the most motivated this team's been all fucking year long, and I'm excited for it. But if he can come out and play really well, and no one else runs away with it, and they can go win these last 4 games and win the division, Lamar might win it again. Like
I'm trying to see
I love these.
what the betting odds are. Lamar's plus 900 right now, so he's not out of it for sure.
Yeah, like I would throw a little fiver on that. Like I'd take a chance on that because what's Josh? Probably like minus 450 at this point.
Minus 250.
Yeah,
Saquon's plus 400 still.
yeah. I mean that's not a bad bet either.
So you can 4 times your money if it happens. I don't know. I'm very curious. Today's games could move the needle one way or another.
Yeah,
All right.
Baltimore's got that late bye week. They got to build on it.
I don't think we're gonna have time to talk about our next session, so I'll probably save that for next week. I think that'll be that deserves to be a longer discussion than we have time for. If you or anyone you know, we talked a lot of college football today.
Yeah, we stood there like I was like, oh, we're gonna have plenty. I almost went and wanted to talk about some head coaching spots, and then we talked about college football for half an hour.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
It's how it goes. It's how it happens around here sometimes. It's just loose. If we want to talk about college football, we can. That's the best part about being us. If you or anyone you know is struggling with a gambling addiction, contact the Problem Gambling Helpline at 800-522-4700. Professionals are available 24 hours a day. Take your call. Help is available at no cost to the problem gambler or their concerned others. It's been a couple weeks. We took, I think, 2 weeks off, right? 2 weeks back to back.
Yep, I think so.
So I'm not even going to cover. I went 2-1 last time we did bets. I'm 16-8 on the season, having a pretty good year. 66% hit rate. I'll take that. This week, got the Chargers plus 3.5 versus the Chiefs. Every game the Chiefs play is close. The Chargers team is a talented team. They're playing on the uptick as well. They're playing better. I don't think the Chargers win it, but I think the Chiefs might win it by a field goal. I think it's going to be one of those games. So I like the 3.5. That's why I like it. Just as a slight edge. I've got the Eagles minus 13.5 versus the Panthers. It's the Panthers. I think it's a 2-touchdown game. I think the defense is really going to struggle to contain the Eagles offense that's been humming and looking a lot better lately. And then I've got the 49ers minus 3.5 versus the Bears. A lot of people are really low on the 49ers, and I think it's somewhat deserved. I think it might be a little bit of an overreaction in the market, though. I think it might be too low of how low people are on the 49ers.
Yeah, I like them. I like the Chargers a lot because I agree with you. The Chiefs can't convincingly win a game to save their effing lives.
Yeah.
If you said, "Oh, you have to win by 5 for it to actually count as a win," if not, it goes as a tie. The Chiefs would be like 1-1-10.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like the bets. Of course, this will be the one week where the Eagles' offense unravels and Sirianni just has that game where you're like, God, do we fucking keep this guy?
Do we keep
Hopefully not. Hopefully not for your sake, but you know it's going to happen eventually.
It's coming.
I'm going to double up on our AFC North. We only got one AFC North matchup this week, and I'm going to double down on it because I like both picks here. I've got Cleveland plus 6.5 versus Pittsburgh. It's another scenario where I do not see Cleveland winning this game like they did the first time. Obviously, the snow and everything, but Pittsburgh's played 3 division games. They have not won any of them by 5 or more points. We know that this is probably going to be a low-scoring, run the ball. Mike Tomlin will get a touchdown lead in the second quarter and said, all right, 40 carries the rest of the way. We can just chew this clock out. Jameis will probably throw a pick here and there, but he'll also hit a 70-yard TD, Jerry Jeudy over the top. It'll be an interesting game back and forth. I like Cleveland to keep it within a touchdown, and I'm going to roll that with Cleveland and Pittsburgh under 42.5. The AFC North unders have been good all year again. Of course, 2 weeks back, I had Baltimore and Pittsburgh over 48.5 because I didn't expect our defense to buy a stop, and I didn't expect their defense to really get a hold of us. Sure enough, stick with the classic AFC North unders, folks. Never bet an AFC North over. It's the fucking biggest rookie mistake in the book, and I fell for it. Would have been my first perfect week all year. I realized I didn't even go to my record. I went 2-1 the last time we did it. I'm 12-12 on the year, so back even. I've been fighting for this 12-12. So if I go 1-2 this week, check on me. Send me a text.
Say,
Um,
hey, how you doing?
are you still okay? Are you going to work tomorrow, or are you taking a mental health day? Um, but yeah, Cleveland and Pittsburgh under 42.5. Cleveland plus 6.5 versus Pitt. My last pick. Gonna roll with all AFC North picks. I got the Bengals in my last one. I have Cincinnati and Dallas over 49.5 in Jerry's World. You know what happens when teams play in Jerry's World? They score a lot of touchdowns, and also the Cowboys don't score a lot of touchdowns. So
It's true.
um, I this game feels a lot like, I mean, Joe Burrow has been slinging the fucking rock. That is one thing that's been constant all year long.
He's played so
It,
good. That team has just been so disappointing.
if you were to take records out of it, take the eye test out of it, and just look at like the raw numbers week in, week out, and totals, like Joe Burrow has a legitimate case of the MVP trophy, dude. This guy, like, I wasn't on train with it early because everyone's like, oh, he might be in contention because he has such and such touchdowns and such yards. And I was like, listen, all due respect to that guy, and I don't want to take away his two best games of the season, but if he doesn't play Baltimore twice, his stats are literally half what they are right now.
That's
Like
crazy.
his numbers against us this year were fucking insane, as they always are. Like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase playing against the Ravens is like the epitome of you having two fantasy guys on Monday Night Football, but they're playing against your favorite team. Where you're like, I hope they both score 4 touchdowns and then we win on a game winning field goal. That's what I want. Because I want my damn fantasy points, but I want to fucking win.
I want to win.
Like, so he's thrown for over 300 one, two, three times, and two of them have been the last 3 weeks. So, and then he threw for 428 and 392 against us.
That's
So
crazy.
he's broken 300 5 times. He's not broken 350 twice, but those 2 times he broke 400 once and got to 390 the other time. Both games were against us. So, and also his touchdowns, he threw a total of 9 against us.
Dang.
The issue is he has 30 touchdowns on the season, and he's thrown 14 of them against Baltimore and the Raiders. But like these numbers, 3,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, 5 picks. You're not looking at the record. That's an MVP. That's the definition. 30 touchdowns, 5 picks. That's an MVP.
That's a pretty elite year.
That's a pretty damn good year. But the issue is they're sitting here and they've got what, 8 losses, 7 losses on the docket so far this year. Like, yeah, and it draws me back to the Jamar Chase pick every single time where I'm like, I know Jamar's dynamite. I'm sure they love playing together. It's obviously had its benefits. It's nowhere near a bad pick, but like Penny Sewell on that offensive line would be fucking life changing for Joe Burrow right about now. So who knows? Did I lose you? Oh, well, folks, Tim had a little bit of technical difficulties on the way out. His computer just crashed literally in the 53rd minute. So that's going to do it for this week's Red Zone Talk. Make sure you guys follow us on all of our social medias. We haven't been as active as we wanted to be this year, but again, life happens, and we've just been trucking through it as much as we can. So hopefully, we didn't just lose a whole episode for you guys. We had some great college football talk in there, but we'll try to be back next week. I don't want to make any guarantees as far as weekly episodes at this point with how I've had issues among issues among issues, but that's going to do it.